Hello everybody, it's Jack from Cultaholic Wrestling, back once again with what happened at AEW All Out 2023. Let's go. The first match, a late addition to the pre-show, an over-budget battle royal with the winner getting $50,000 to give to a charity of their choice. Before the match begins, Tony Nese gets on the mic and does a heel promo. He wants to lead a fitness class to inspire these out-of-shape fans in Chicago. Obviously, the bell rings and he gets scooped up by a few faces and thrown out of there. Well done, Tony. The JAS team up to eliminate Bandito. I guess they're still friends then, without Jericho. So are they just they're just the ass now? The ass. At one point, Daniel Garcia, well, he does a lot of dancing in this match, but at one point he dances while Sean Spears throws up the 10s at him and they have a 10 and dance off. Dalton Castle nearly gets eliminated, but the boys save him on the outside. The same thing then happens to Cool Hand Ange, but he tells them, hey, put me down. So they do on the outside of the ring, not on the apron. Oh, Ange, you fool. Scorpio Sky eliminates Jake Hager and Daniel Garcia, which seems pretty significant. Is he going to start beefing with that group? Garcia, after he gets eliminated, by the way, sadly dances up the ramp. Hangman Page and Trent Beretta form an impromptu alliance to eliminate Mark Davis of Aussie Open. A little bit later on, Brian Cage hits a big old F5 on Trent, leaving us with a final three of Hangman, Brian Cage, and Toa Leona. Toa nearly wins it all for the presumably heelish charity of his choice, but Hangman lariats him out of there, leaving Hangman and Brian Cage. They end up battling on the apron where Hangman hits the Deadeye and Cage falls off, leaving Hangman Adam Page as the winner of the Battle Royal. He was like easily the biggest name in this match, so he was probably the favorite. Hooray, good for you, Hangman. The next match on the pre-show is a 6-woman tag team match with the team of Hikaru Shida, Willow Nightingale, and hometown girl Sky Blue taking on the team of the Ring of Honor Women's World Champion Athena, Mercedes Martinez, and Diamante. Athena is accompanied by Billy Starks. The other two heels try to send her away, but Athena's like, no, she can stick around. Athena wants to start things off in the ring, but it's just all a little ruse. She throws Diamante at the face team instead in cowardly fashion. This leads to the heels all arguing on the outside, allowing Sky Blue to dive onto them from the top. The heels beat down Sky for a while until she gets the hot tag to Willow. Athena is scared of Willow, tries to tag out, but the other two jump down off the apron. Miscommunication in the ranks. It all breaks down for a while until Mercedes hits a really terrifying German suplex off the top on Sky Blue. Athena then hits the O-face on Willow before getting a nice little exchange with Shida. Is this a future Ring of Honor title match, perhaps? They certainly seem to be teasing it on commentary. Anyway, on the outside, the action goes with Sky Blue luring Athena into the path of a big pounce from Willow Nightingale. Shortly after that, back in the ring, Sky Blue manages to hit the Code Blue on Diamante for the 3 count and the win. The third and final match on the pre-show sees the trio's titles on the line. It's Team Jarrett against the Acclaimed and Billy Gunn. Jarrett's team are out with a mocking basketball Chicago Bulls style entrance, but Sonjay is dressed not in Bulls gear, but in a Detroit Pistons jersey. Ooh. When Satnam Singh arrives, he teases dunking a basketball on the stage, but instead just squashes it with his bare hands. He's a big man. The Acclaimed are out, of course, with Dennis Rodman. The rap that the Acclaimed do, by the way, is all kind of about Dennis Rodman. It's like, oh, Karen Jarrett's checking him out. He was friends with Kim Jong-un. Like, there's no mention of CM Punk, is what I'm saying. Not that I expected there to be, because, oh my word, imagine the heat the Acclaimed would have got from the crowd in Chicago. So I suppose it was probably the right call. But I just thought I'd make it clear there was no CM Punk reference at all in the rap. Anyway, before the match, Billy Gunn announces his own personal choice of referee, Aubrey Edwards, who, of course, has previous beef with Karen Jarrett. The match progresses, and midway through, Billy Gunn and Satnam Singh tag in and have a big lads back and forth, which Singh wins with a big boot and then an even bigger chokeslam on Anthony Bowens. Sonjay gets on the apron from the outside to distract Aubrey so that Karen can come in the other side with a guitar, but Aubrey turns around and catches her in the act. Aubrey then gets like a bit of a spot where she hits Karen. I think there's meant to be a back and forth, and then Aubrey hits her and Karen takes a bump. But we don't really quite see clearly what's going on because it's at the same time, basically. Rodman is getting in the ring. What's he going to do? Well, the answer to that question is a massive guitar shot to Satnam Singh. Good guitar shot, but then Rodman doesn't get out of the ring again. He just stands in the corner. On the hard cam side, by the way, you see Billy Gunn going like, mate, can you get out the ring? And Rodman's like, nope. Just stands there with the remnants of the shattered guitar in his hand. The referee sees it. She can't do anything. She's like, what's going on? Even though it's very obvious what's going on. The Acclaimed hit all their big moves and win. Dennis Rodman still in the ring. The first match of the main portion of the show is for the Ring of Honor Tag Team titles. The champions MJF and Adam Cole defending against Silver and Reynolds of the Dark Order. Cole and MJF are obviously so over. In fact, just before the boom taunt during their entrance, MJF gets given a little sip of a fan's beer. Sippy, sippy, sippy. They go for the double clothesline early on, and Nigel points out that by announcing it, they're kind of telegraphing the move, which turns out to be true because Reynolds manages to pull Silver under the bottom rope to safety. MJF starts a sportsmanship chant from the crowd and offers Alex Reynolds a handshake before obviously poking him in the eye. MJF then looks for the kangaroo kick but doesn't get it, then starts selling the back of the neck a lot as commentary play up the damage done in the main event of All In last week. Cole checks on his partner on the outside but Silver jumps him, and then Evil Uno distracts the ref and MJF takes a chair shot from Reynolds right in the back of the neck, the Dark Order going full heel here. MJF gets taken to the back by the medical team, really selling the neck hard, leaving Cole 2-on-1. He fights bravely, but the heels start to take control. They even distract the ref at one stage while Evil Uno puts the boots in on the outside. The Dark Order mockingly hit a double clothesline of their own, but Cole manages to kick out. Then the Dark Order try to use one of the belts as a weapon, but Cole fights them off and crawls towards the empty corner of the ring, the crowd all wanting MJF to emerge, and here he comes right on cue, pushing officials away. MJF gets the hot tag, and it's pure sports entertainment. Big babyface comeback, he nails the kangaroo kick, Uno gets on the apron, but Cole super kicks him down, and the babyface has hit the big double clothesline on Reynolds for the win. But then there's intriguing scenes after the match that I wasn't expecting. MJF's helped out of the ring very gingerly, but insists on walking out under his own power. But then he's passed on the ramp by the entrance of Samoa Joe, who comes out for the next match. Joe bumps MJF on the way past, so MJF runs back into the ring and attacks him, starting a brawl. Joe slaps on a guillotine on the weakened neck of MJF, and then everybody holds them apart. Very tense indeed, and a feud that I really do want to see between MJF and Samoa Joe. As mentioned, that Joe match is next, defending his Ring of Honor Television Championship against Shane Taylor. And these two lads are just punching each other. It's a very intense start. Joe hits a big dive to the outside, always very impressive when he hits that move. But back in the ring, it's Taylor taking control, getting a near fall off a very stiff lariat. Taylor also shows off his versatility at one stage, heading up top and hitting a big frog splash. Oh my. But again, it's only a near fall. We then get a really nasty stiff strike exchange, which ends with Joe throwing a million knees into the head of Taylor, locking in the clutch and securing the submission victory. Good match though, and a really nice showing from Shane Taylor, despite, the clean submission loss. The next match is the TNT title match, with Luchasaurus defending against Darby Allin, with Christian Cage at ringside, of course, with Luchasaurus, and Nick Wayne accompanying Darby. Things quickly turn into a brawl on the outside in this one, with Darby launched into the barricade. Luchasaurus beats him down on the outside, and Darby is busted open very early on. Luchasaurus slams Darby into the ring steps and then crushes him beneath them before walking up them in a cool visual. Darby beats the count back into the ring, but just continues to get beaten down. He eventually flips out of a chokeslam attempt and begins his comeback, but then as he heads up top and dives off, he just bounces off Luchasaurus in the middle of the ring. Back to the outside they go again, and Darby sits Luchasaurus in a chair before hitting a swanton from the top down onto him. Very scary indeed. Back in the ring, the scary stuff continues as Darby takes a German suplex and lands very high up, hopefully not on his head or his neck, but it looks very scary. I think on the replay, he may just have rotated enough. Luchasaurus keeps getting Darby in torture rack attempts, and Christian's urging him on the outside, break his back, and then starts urging Nick Wayne to throw in the towel and save Darby, but Wayne refuses. They argue, but Darby gets out of it and hits a nice suicide dive onto Christian on the outside. Back in the ring, Darby gets an avalanche code red for a very, very near fall. He goes up for the coffin drop, but on the outside, Christian hits Nick Wayne with a chair and prepares for a concerto. This causes Darby to hesitate just enough for Luchasaurus to recover and hit a pair of tombstones and a lariat for the win. After the match, Christian sets up Darby for a concerto, but various members of the locker room rush out to stop him, and he flees off with Luchasaurus and the belt. I think this is to show that everyone in the locker room hates Christian, and he's a really bad guy, and it's effective. This one I've noticed also maybe sowed the seed slightly for a potential Nick Wayne betrayal of Darby, because even though Darby hesitated when Christian looked to be about to hit Wayne with the concerto, he didn't actually stop. He went to do his move anyway, and Luchasaurus attacked him. So Nick Wayne can therefore say like, oh, you never had my back. We'll have to see where it goes. Next up, oh my god, the next match I'm going to call in the meat of battle. It's Miro versus Powerhouse Hobbs. These two lock up even before the bell, and it's Hobbs who wins this initial kind of test of strength, shoving Miro down. Miro doesn't look too happy and returns the favor. Then the strike exchange begins as Excalibur drops a Big E reference on commentary, as this obviously is an example of two big meaty men slapping all of the meat. Hobbs is seemingly getting the better of Miro in the early going with a big belly-to-belly overhead suplex, just launching such a large opponent. It's very impressive. A little bit later on, Miro dodges a splash attempt in the corner and Hobbs spills to the outside, where Miro drops him with a cannonball off the apron. This is around the sort of time the meat chants start. The crowd chant "slap that meat" as they fight back into the ring and have a long exchange of hard lariats, neither man falling until Miro finally chains several lariats together and knocks Hobbs down to a big reaction. There's a big superplex spot out of one of the corners, and when they get back up, Hobbs dodges a kick and hits a massive power slam, but it only gets 2 as the crowd chant "meat forever." Miro hits his bicycle kick for 2 and then locks in the "game over," but Hobbs slowly stands up out of it as the crowd chant "holy meat," and then he hits a spinebuster for a very near fall. Hobbs then goes to steal Miro's finisher. He tries to lock in the "game over," but Miro slips out and hits the spinebuster on Hobbs. Miro then gets the "game over" locked in again, and Hobbs taps out. Miro wins an intense slapping meat match. It was just great. The pair have a show of respect afterwards, shaking hands. Miro turns to leave, and then Hobbs attacks him. No, I thought you'd won each other's respect. Hobbs beats Miro down, but then unfamiliar music hits, and here comes Lana to save the day, but not before she hits her pose on the ramp before actually rushing down to save her husband. She's clearly been to the Jeff Hardy school of urgency when making a run-in. Lana hits Hobbs with a chair, but he no-sells it and stares her down, but then Miro recovers to attack Hobbs and clear him out of the ring. Strangely though, Miro refuses to celebrate with Lana, shouting at her that she isn't real as he leaves up the ramp. Lana looks confused, and so am I. Commentary though kind of allude to the fact that Miro sacrificed everything and sort of isolated himself in the pursuit of wrestling greatness, so I guess that might be the route they go down from here. Next up, we have the TBS title match with the champion Kris Statlander defending against Ruby Soho, who's accompanied of course by the AEW Women's Champion Saraya. This one starts off with Ruby knocking down Statlander several times, only for the champ to kip up back to her feet. Statlander then takes control, so Saraya tries to distract her on the outside and gets chased around the ring, right into a shotgun dropkick from Ruby to Kris off the apron. Back in the ring, Ruby takes control of the match, even distracting the ref at one point as Saraya chokes Statlander over the bottom rope. However, Statlander works her way back into the match and gets several near falls, including one off that very nice spinning Michinoku driver type thing she does. I don't know the name. Ruby manages to roll out of Statlander's finisher and they exchange roll-up near falls before hitting simultaneous crossbodies, and both women are down. They're so evenly matched. Meanwhile, on the outside, Saraya's just been getting heat from the crowd. She tears up a sign at one point, which I believe says, "Saraya calls fries chips." And she does, we all do. England, yay. Don't be ashamed of that, Saraya. Back in the ring, Ruby hits a nice Poison Rana and a Spike Hurricane Rana into the canvas for a near fall. Now, Statlander takes control and heads up top, but Saraya distracts her and it allows Ruby to bring her down and hit Destination Unknown. 1, 2, it's only a near fall. Again, Statlander kicks out. A desperate Ruby now goes to use the spray paint can as Saraya distracts the referee, but out from under the ring, here comes Toni Storm, who takes the can from Ruby, and Toni's still being very, bizarre, kind of having a breakdown, but she's kind of deranged and laughing and spraying the can in the air, going, "Whoo," as she sprays the can. It's very odd, but very effective. Toni is doing a wonderful job with this new gimmick. Meanwhile, in the ring, Ruby turns around into Statlander's finish for the 3. Kris Statlander is still the TBS champion. This was a great back and forth match between two women. It was probably one of the more less anticipated matches on the card, or at least one with maybe less of a build. But they really went out there and delivered, and I enjoy where it's going with this Toni Storm storyline. So good work all round. Next up, oh my god, this match. Ricky Steamboat is out to be the special guest commentator for the next bout, the strap match between Ricky Starks and Bryan Danielson. Bryan gets the final countdown entrance and the crowd are hyped. They start to, get in the ring and get the strap put on them, but Starks hesitates and instead just jumps Bryan, beating him down. The beatdown goes to the outside where Starks gets a weight belt, wraps it around his fist and uses the buckle of it to bust Bryan wide open. The match hasn't even begun. Aubrey has little sympathy here. Bryan's like selling and bleeding all over the place on the outside, and she just gets in the ring with the other end of the strap, like, right, let's get this match underway. Ties the other end to Ricky, like, yay, let's go. Finally, the match is officially underway, and Ricky just continues this vicious beatdown. Bryan slowly fights back into it, but then gets backdropped over onto the apron and smacked hard with the strap. There's a lot more strap shots in this match, but that's the first of many. Bryan gets choked with the strap for a bit, but they end up back in the ring, and Ricky ends up hung on the top turnbuckle, and Bryan lays in those strap shots hard. Starks falls backwards into the Tree of Woe position and takes even more, and then several low drop kicks to the head. Back to the outside they go, where Starks trash talks Steamboat at commentary, but this gives Bryan enough time to grab the strap and yank Starks' shoulder repeatedly into the ring post. Bryan then uses the strap to tie Ricky to the ring post and grind his head into the metal, where we see that Starks is now busted open too. Back in the ring, Bryan hits his signature running dropkicks in the corner, but Ricky cuts him off with a big clothesline, and both men are down. They drag themselves slowly back to their feet and exchange slaps with the strap, basically. Starks wins the exchange at first, but then Bryan starts to hulk up. He no-sells strap shots before returning some of his own and kicks as well, and just leaves Starks as this battered and bloody mess in the ring. But then here comes Big Bill to interfere. But not for long, however, as Ricky Steamboat gets up from the table and yanks Bill off the apron before laying in some pretty damn good right hands and chops, but Bill grabs him by the neck until Bryan saves the day by throwing Starks over the top rope onto Bill. Back in the ring, Starks gets the spear out of nowhere, but Bryan kicks out at 2. He then avoids the Rochambeau and hits the running knee, but now Starks kicks out at 2. Bryan has had enough and says, right, it's time to kick his mother flipping head in. Lots of stomps to the head, and the bell lock is locked in. Ricky fights it, so Bryan wraps the strap around the neck instead and chokes Ricky Starks out. Bryan Danielson wins what, in my mind, I think is probably a match of the year contender. Your mileage may vary, but I really enjoyed this one. And he celebrates with Steamboat on the ramp. After the match, Nigel McGuinness gets on the mic and announces that after winning the pre-show Battle Royal, Hangman has chosen to donate the $50,000 to the Chicago Public Education Fund. Fair enough. Nice job, Hangman. Next up, it is the tag team match between Eddie Kingston and Katsuyori Shibata and the team of Claudio Castagnoli and Wheeler Yuta of the Blackpool Combat Club. We get a nice Terry Funk tribute as Eddie is out in a Claudio Sucks Eggs t-shirt. Very nice to see. Eddie tags in early on and Claudio tags straight out. He doesn't respect Eddie and is also trying to play mind games with him essentially. So Eddie just follows him to the outside and takes the fight there instead. But this allows Yuta to take Eddie out with a big dive. Kingston gets beaten down for a while until he fights out of a Yuta submission and makes the hot tag to Shibata, who goes for the dropkick in the corner, but Claudio chases him across the ring and hits him in the opposite corner with an uppercut. Shibata does fight back though and does manage to hit the dropkick, but then the BCC fight back and Claudio boosts Wheeler into a big splash from the top, but it only gets 2. Shibata then drops Yuta with a big back fist before managing to clamp on stereo submissions on both opponents at once. Claudio fights out of his and drops Shibata with an uppercut, but this only intensifies the angle of the submission on Wheeler. A very unique spot, I enjoyed it. Eddie gets back in and looks to finish Yuta off with a Saito suplex, but Claudio breaks it up in time before having a long exchange of uppercuts with Shibata. They end up brawling to the outside where Claudio rams him against the barricade, and then back in the ring, Eddie fights up from a German suplex from Wheeler, but then Wheeler hits a bridging German suplex, but it only gets 2, very back and forth at this point. Eddie drops Yuta with just a massive slap to the face, so Claudio tags in and the old enemies continue to beat the crap out of each other. Claudio hits the neutralizer for 2, goes for the Ricola bomb, but Eddie flips out and hits a huge back fist, then a Northern Lights bomb, 1-2, but then Yuta breaks it up just in time. From the apron, Shibata clamps a sleeper hold on Yuta, and this allows Eddie to resume the attack on Claudio, who uppercuts him and instantly gets the pinfall. Wow. That was an interesting and sudden finish, although maybe not one I'm totally against. It furthers Eddie's frustration with Claudio. It kind of feels like Claudio got a little bit lucky maybe with this flash pinfall off one move, but I think, yeah, it was different. I don't think I'm totally against it, and the match was generally very fun. Next up, Kenny Omega versus Konosuke Takeshita. Kenny comes out with his old DDT-style green tights on. It's an interesting throwback. This one has a very back-and-forth start until Takeshita hits a terrifying back suplex. Kenny lands right on his head. Jesus. Takeshita presses the advantage on the outside, but then Kenny gets control and hits the "you can't escape" combo off the guardrail. Back in the ring, Takeshita gouges the eyes to regain control of the match and then blocks a Hurricane Rana and sends Kenny face first into the middle turnbuckle. Shortly after that, they head back to the outside and Takeshita hits a very scary brainbuster on Kenny. Takeshita then tries to use a chair, but the ref stops him, but it's all just a distraction so that Callis can stack several chairs on Kenny, allowing Takeshita to senton over the top rope onto him with the chairs on his torso. Takeshita gets a near fall off a nice blue thunderbomb. He's got a nice blue thunderbomb, and then really takes control of the match again until he goes for a big back senton off the top rope and Kenny gets the knees up. A little bit later, Takeshita tries a jumping knee in the corner, but Kenny ducks it and Takeshita spills terrifyingly to the outside, and this allows Kenny to hit his big Terminator dive. Now Kenny starts running through his big moves, snapdragons, a V-trigger to the back of the head, and a poison Rana for 2. They flip out of each other's German suplex attempts. Kenny hits another V-trigger, but Takeshita answers back with a huge lariat. Again, Kenny starts to get rolling with a powerbomb and more V-triggers. He goes for the one-winged angel, but Takeshita counters it into his jumping tombstone, but again it only gets 2. Both men are really throwing everything at each other here. Kenny hits yet more knees and heads up top with Takeshita on his shoulders, looking for a massive avalanche one-winged angel, but Takeshita thankfully manages to get down, but then he hits an avalanche blue thunder bomb. Really terrifying move again, but it only gets 2, so Takeshita hits a massive knee, and again, it only gets 2. Don Callis tries to hit Kenny with a screwdriver. Kenny moves, and the screwdriver sticks in the canvas, and Kenny's like, "Whoa, Don, what the hell, man?" This allows Takeshita to take control, but Kenny's ready for him, gets him up for the one-winged angel, but Takeshita has the screwdriver. However, the referee sees it, takes it off him, but then Takeshita rolls Kenny into a pinfall attempt. Kenny counters with a roll-up of his own, and neither man can pin the other. Takeshita gets back to his feet, hits a massive knee, and again Kenny kicks out. Nobody can believe it. Takeshita hits one final knee, and finally, that's enough for the win. Takeshita wins an epic contest, and yeah, he beats Kenny Omega. I mean, yes, he did beat Kenny last week at All In as well, but this was a big singles match and a massive statement win for Takeshita. Also, as commentary emphasized, it's another big loss without Don in Kenny's corner. Next up, 8-man tag team action as FTR and the Young Bucks team together to take on Jay White, Juice Robinson, and the Guns, aka Bullet Club Gold, aka the Bang Bang Gang. The crowd are rowdy for this one, giving the Bucks quite the reception. A lot of it's negative, I must say. Cash Wheeler even mocks the Bucks at the start by really emphasizing that he is holding the tag rope, as if to be like, "Look guys, this is a tag rope, you have to hold it to tag in, it's part of the rules." The Bucks get in early and run wild to massive heat from the crowd, although, to be fair, they're playing up to it so much, they do get some Young Bucks chants as well. Dax plays face in peril, tags out to Cash, then he gets beaten down a lot by the heels, Juice gouges the eyes a lot, and that brings everyone into the ring for a big brawl. The faces win the brawl and hit quadruple atomic drops and then quadruple sharpshooters, but on the outside a little bit after this, Dax gets slingshotted into the ring post, and once again he is the face in peril. There's a long beatdown segment until Dax finally makes the tag, but commentary emphasized that, he had to tag Nick Jackson rather than his preferred option of, obviously, Cash Wheeler. The Bucks then run wild until Matt almost accidentally superkicks Cash, but then surprisingly they don't fight or argue. Cash then just joins Matt in dishing out some double superkicks. A little bit later on, the Bucks then take a leaf out of FTR's book with Matt helping Dax with a spike piledriver. This is kind of the story of the second half of the match. Austin Gunn then ends up isolated with an opponent on each corner of the ring. Dax hits him with a superplex, then Cash with a splash, then Matt with an elbow drop, and then Nick with a 450, all in sequence. Dax makes the cover, but Juice pulls him out of the ring. FTR look for the Shatter Machine, but it gets broken up, but Dax does eventually hit it with Nick Jackson providing the other half of the move. Jay White is on his own and gets hit with a BTE trigger from Matt Jackson and Dax Harwood. 1-2, but Colton Gunn is on hand to break it up before hitting Matt with a Fameasser on the outside. Another Shatter Machine attempt gets broken up again by the heels, and this time Jay White hits the Blade Runner on Cash, and Colton is on hand to make the instant pinfall attempt, and the Bucks are just too late to break it up. FTR and the Bucks have lost, and the Bang Bang Gang have got the win. Guns up, everyone! FTR and the Bucks have words afterwards, but it's all quite calm. They seem to accept the loss and leave without coming to blows. Interesting. We'll see what happens from here on out. And finally, the main event for the International Championship. The champion Orange Cassidy taking on the challenger Jon Moxley. After a lot of early posturing, Cassidy goes for the hands in the pockets taunt. Moxley just drops him and starts to dominate the match. A few minutes in, the fight spills to the outside with Moxley hurling Cassidy into the ring post, and he's busted wide open. Moxley then worsens the wound, punching and even biting away on top of the announce table. Orange beats the count back into the ring, but then gets hit with a pile driver, but it's only good enough for 2. Moxley is still fully in control, even at one stage mockingly putting his hands in his pockets. He's stolen the taunt. Cassidy makes his comeback, biting Moxley, then firing up with DDTs and missing an orange punch, but then hitting a Shibata style kick to the chest, followed by the orange punch, but Moxley kicks out. Moxley gets the Gotch pile driver and locks in the bulldog choke, and then every submission that Orange escapes, Moxley transitions into a new submission. So then he goes into a rear naked choke, Cassidy gets out, so then he puts on an armbar, so Cassidy gets out of that, and then Moxley puts on the label lock like his stablemate Bryan Danielson. Orange Cassidy almost passes out from this, but makes the ropes. At this stage, Moxley goes outside and removes a section of padding outside the ring. He goes for a sick Piley D on the exposed concrete, but Orange reverses into the beach break. He then dropkicks Moxley's head into the ring steps, and Moxley almost gets counted out, but just makes it back in time. Orange hits the orange punch and a second one, but he goes for a third, which is countered with a cutter, but then the Death Rider is countered into that third orange punch, and then Orange Cassidy hits a spear off the ropes twice like Roman Reigns in a big match. Oh my goodness. However, Moxley still manages to kick out, but Cassidy is very much on top now. He hits his little kicks, but they gradually get harder and harder until he's fully stomping Moxley. Moxley fights back with a big lariat, but Orange Cassidy no-sells it, so Moxley hits a second one and a third, but still Cassidy kicks out, so then Moxley hits the Death Rider. 1, 2, and it's the laziest of shoulder roll kickouts from Orange Cassidy. But at this stage, it becomes clear that Cassidy's race is pretty much run. He wobbles to his feet, flips Moxley the bird, but Moxley hits a very high-angled, elevated kind of Death Rider and becomes the new International Champion. The BCC come out and celebrate with Moxley to the back. Hey, it's been a great night for them. I think they all won their matches, so good job, Blackpool Combat Club. That leaves Orange Cassidy alone in the ring without his title, which he's just lost, but he gets a nice standing ovation from all the fans. And that is how All Out 2023 ended. And honestly, look, the build-up to this has been dominated by the CM Punk stuff, and I've made no secret of the fact that I'm a huge CM Punk fan, but I wanted this show to be good, and it certainly was. I think this is in contention for the show of the year so far. In fact, I can't think of a better wrestling show in 2023. But let me know what you think in that comment section down below. And let me know what you thought of the individual matches as well. What was your favorite match? What did you like? What didn't you like? Let us all know. And we'll read every single one, I promise. Thanks for listening. I've been Jack from Cultaholic. Thank you very much to Joel and Sam for editing this very video. And I'll see you very soon.